Welcome to the Trend Detection Podcast, powered by Siemens. And now your host, Niall Sullivan.
Because I think from a Senseye perspective, it's funny being a person on the other side of the fence, but from a Senseye perspective, I think we spent a long time focusing on maybe OT in terms of like, obviously marketing person, but focusing on messaging towards that. But we realised that it's just as important to engage and bring in IT, and especially early on into let's say the sales process or the early engagements.
Yeah.
So then, so there's understanding from both sides. There's no use having if you go at it either way, you go from IT being engaged from the start, and then you bring OT at the end, or you flip it. It's just not going to work. They need to be on it sounds a bit cheesy, but on the same journey together, really,
and understand what that journey is and what's the value of it, right? I mean, if that doesn't happen, what happens is we solve tactical problems, and then we come together for integration. So the only time we talk is because we need to integrate two systems, but actually, did we take a step back and understand what is the value of doing what we're doing, and could we do it differently, and how do we involve people on both sides of the fence to get a better outcome? When we talk a lot about Mendix's sweet spot really is in delivering, using low code to solve complex problems. Often low code is sort of put in the bucket of departmental, small, less mission critical problem solving. And that's probably driven by one of the major vendors out there that has a very specific low code offering. But most of our customers that are working with us are solving complex problems. They're building solutions in Mendix that, for example, run parcel delivery for the Netherlands. Big complex problems. And low code is, I'd argue that our technology is more applicable, or low code as a category is more applicable to complexity, because you have uncertainty, you have lots of people, you have lots of technical challenges. It's complex by nature, and therefore the only way we solve complex problems is to chunk them down, come together and try and solve them together. So we'd argue that actually, digital transformation, you've got to take a holistic approach to it. You've got to think about every aspect of it, and then how do you take those complex problems and chunk them down into something that's manageable. You could then get into worlds of things like composable and composable enterprise, which is quite a hot topic at the moment as you start to build and reuse components across the organisation. So it's an exciting place to be, but it's it's not without its challenges, that's for sure.
And I think the Mendix approach is particularly interesting because there's often this conversation about build it versus buy it, and that's just technology instead. And Mendix obviously make it easy to build own applications, but how does Mendix sort of approach that argument of build versus buy, I guess?
Yeah, I mean it's at the core of what we do, and I think there's an interesting view on that. I mean, some people are happy to take software off the shelf and bend their processes to meet the software. There are some people that feel that that's not what they want to do, and they want to build the software from the ground up and make it very specific to their needs, and therefore highly differentiated. I'd argue that there's a middle ground. There's a sort of blend approach where you can take something like a Team Center from Siemens or SAP as an ERP system, and you can build on top of those solutions. So you can take the published APIs that they have, and you can then extend outside of the core of the platform and create that differentiation through products like Mendix, low code platform. So you're taking existing technology with best of breed and you're blending it with new technology. You're actually creating some separation. So we don't want to start building inside the core because that just creates long-term problems for upgrades and maintenance. But if you can surround that with these new and very specifically developed capabilities that differentiate you from your competitor, you get the best of both worlds. We're pushing on the concept of what we call adaptive, which is really then how do you take some of those key components and distribute them where the 80% of what you create is probably locked down, and you can then manage 20% of that. So there's lots of ways in which you can play with that world of build versus buy, but I'd argue that it's somewhere in the middle. There's a reason that Team Center, is the world's #1 PLM system, but there are things that with Mendix on top of that you can add specific differentiation for you. So I think it's a case of looking at it through that blended perspective.
I think that makes a lot of sense after you've explained that. Actually, that it's not just building. It's sort of combining what you've got already. Because I guess I'm just thinking from the outside, you approach an organisation, they've got lots of different systems. They're just working out, how can we make these systems work better together, and so we can increase operational efficiencies and things like that.
Yeah.
So,
the differentiation is often in the gaps, isn't it? If you've got an ERP system, or you've got a PLM system, or you've got a manufacturing system, a large proportion of what you do is probably covered by those technologies. But maybe the bit that transforms your business is some idea that you have that sits in and around the gap between those systems. So how do you address that? So I think it's important to look at those gaps. It's important to look at, what is differentiating for you and what digital will help you achieve, and then use technologies like low-code platforms, Mendix, to help you to build that very rapidly. I think what's important for me in digital transformation is the ability to be able to cost-effectively test and learn. Digital transformation is about pushing the boundaries of how we operate. It's about doing things differently. Or you're not transforming, right? If you're just doing the same with technology, you're optimizing. I think you're taking what you do and you're making it better and more efficient, and that's not a bad thing to do. And many organizations are on that optimization route, where they're using technology to just get better at what they do today, cutting costs, automating. AI is a great example of that. Or you've got organizations that are thinking, well, what's my new business model look like? How I'm going to transform what I do, make it different, so I can truly differentiate myself, maybe even create a new line of business, maybe even create a new way to market. So I think it depends on your approach.
Yeah, and I actually wanted to maybe take a little bit step back a bit. So I just want to make sure for people who are sort of tuning in, so what is low code? For maybe sort of break it down a little bit, and then maybe how it, I know you sort of touched upon it then, but how does that help to enable digital transformation, I guess?
Well, at the core, low code is a way of building software without writing code. There's a common misconception that low code means you have to write some code. It's not a reality. With our technology and with many of the low code platforms, you can write complex applications and solutions without writing a single line of code. Low code means for me that you have the capability to write a small amount of code to surround that if you really want to. So it's extensible in that respect. There are lots of no-code platforms that basically are locked in and you can build what you can build. But with low-code, you've got that ability to be able to build anything using low-code. And with our platform, that could be anything from a departmental system to, as I said, a system that runs a postal service or runs a bank or whatever it might be, a manufacturing line. But the principles behind low code are about abstraction and automation. It's about how can we bring visual development capability. So, for example, rather than designing screens at a low level, you can use drag and drop capabilities to build the screens. It's not only building the user interface, but it's building everything that's needed underneath that to be able to share data on a web environment or a mobile environment or a PWA or across all of those environments with one skill set. So we're really about bringing abstraction and automation to the software development process, from ideas, that's like bringing your portfolio of application, understanding value, to the development process, to building your database, to building your front end, to building all the logic, then the automation of deployment into the cloud, and then the running of those applications is all part of a low-code platform. Which means when you take that approach, you can bring different skill sets. So you can have people that aren't professional developers building software. You can have people that are professional developers participating in extending, creating reusable components so that non-professional developers can do even more. So this ability for low code to be able to accelerate the software development process by tenfold, which is typically what you'd expect. You're going to do things 10 times faster, and probably, certainly with our technology, at 70% less cost. So smaller teams building more means you can drive that digital transformation agenda, really drive it, right? You can push it to an extent where that building something quite complex, the actual man time or person time involved and the cost involved are at a level where you can invest in them. Sometimes, with traditional technologies, organizations don't embark on digital transformation because it's just too costly and too risky, because they don't understand the outcome. They're not able to spend the time and the money, and therefore things just don't happen. So we find that bringing low-code technologies and principles into an organization really allows you to accelerate that digital transformation journey, test and learn, do things in a cost-effective model, and then make sure that all of the participants required collaborate around one skill set, one core technology. If we're building an application in Mendix to run on native mobile, it's the same skill set as if I'm building an application to run on the web. So we're creating a common set of the framework I talked about, the rules of engagement. We're creating that with the Mendix platform.
I just want to, this is probably more with a marketing sort of slant on it, but is low code something that's very well known in the market? People are looking for low code platforms, or is it the problem they have and they're not sure?
Yeah.
But I guess you guys are doing fantastic marketing, so obviously everyone knows what low code is, right?
Yeah. So I'd argue that we've sort of helped pioneer the term low code, but I think you're right. I think people, I think it's changing, right? The low code category is maturing. It's much more mature than it didn't exist less than 2014, 16. It was high productivity application platform as a service before then. That was never going to take on.
Not very marketing friendly.
Yeah, it doesn't trip off the tongue. So I think that word, but I think we've done our work in trying to push that. But you're right. Most of the people that we speak to come to the table with a problem to solve. I need to go quicker. I need to develop software faster, or I need to solve a business problem that I can't solve with my existing skills that low code might be able to help. So I think they have a problem in mind. They go and research low code as a way of solving that problem. I do think low code's matured now to the level where it's just generally accepted as a way of automating complex problems that involve writing code, and that's not just for developing apps. That's in AI and data sciences. So it's become quite a bloated category. So answer your question, I think our customers come at it with a problem first, and the low code seems like the way they can solve it and engage with us on exactly how do we use low code to help them solve those business problems. They're not necessarily in the market to buy a low code platform.
Yeah, that's
it's a route to it.
It's just an interesting thing because again, predictive maintenance is an interesting one because it's suddenly, for years it's been sort of like a cool technology. Now it's a bit more mainstream, but the problem when it becomes more mainstream is that everyone says they're doing predictive maintenance. And I was wondering whether there's a lot of people out there, or companies, without going into specifics, but that say they do low code, but in reality it's not really.
There's lots of people riding the low code wave,
or AI or whatever.
Or AI. There's low code everywhere. Low code for AI, low code for HR, low code for. So low code's actually moved now into being sort of low code for specific categories. So you can get low code for legal. So platforms that focus on bringing low code capabilities into the legal world, so become sort of vertically focused. So it is a category that's sort of become, as I say, very bloated, and sometimes it's difficult for people that have a specific problem to solve to understand which technology is going to help them solve it. And so we're pushing quite heavily on making sure that from our perspective we're clear about that. And we've sort of pioneered this space. We've been in it for quite some time, so we're the leader in that respect. So we get sort of more than our fair share of the traffic that comes through general search engine optimization on low code, those kinds of things.
Yeah. Absolutely. And as we've sort of touched upon it a few times, it'd be a bit remiss not to talk about it because obviously we all know AI is becoming the new, well, it already was in a way, but it's now becoming even more in everyone's faces really. But I'm wondering how AI and machine learning, if you want to put those two together, how that sort of fits into this digital transformation story or journey.
Well, it's a couple of ways looking at it. You've got AI for AD, which is artificial intelligence for application development. So how do you apply AI to help you build better software? So, for example, within our product, we have a number of embedded artificial intelligence bots that sit alongside you, and when you're building software in Mendix, they're continuously helping you to do it better. So if you're building some logic and you drag something onto your canvas, our AI bot for logic will pop up and say, I think you want to do this next. So if you're new to the product and learning the product, it's going to be guiding you. It's a bit like a pair programmer. It's looking over your shoulder and saying, okay, most people that did this actually wanted to do this next. Would you like me to do this for you? So it's helping to train you and guide you, making sure the logic's correct as you go. We've got AI for security, and AI for error management, those kinds of things, where they look at the model and they look at the performance of the model and say, actually, we've assessed your model and we think that actually if you did this, it would be more performant, or we should fix this problem because there's a security issue there. So AI for AD is really about how do we bring artificial intelligence into the development process. Large language model is a great example. We're training a large language model on Mendix, where you'll be able to ask it, natural language questions, and it will come back to you, having gone through a whole myriad of sources, from our evaluation guide to our documentation to anonymized models of application. Most of our applications are metadata driven, so we've got a huge amount of information about applications, and how they're built. So it will go and troll over that and give you best practice. It'll help you to build that as you go. So AI for AD is incredibly important. We're pushing on our performance bot, our logic bot and data bot and so on. So we have a number of different products that sit inside the platform, including introduction of large language models. And then you've got AI for applications and AI for business. So how do you bring machine learning models into your applications? So do you want to build visual recognition into your apps? Do you want to look at data that's captured from a windmill, for example, using IoT, and do predictive planning and maintenance based on AI models? So again, I think applying AI to the business problem is incredibly important, but also to the software development problem is incredibly important. The combination of those two things, are very, very powerful. We've just launched ML Kit, which is about embedding machine models into your application and running them simultaneously in the cloud with your application. So that means you can train a model, deploy it once, you don't have to worry about anything else. You can deploy it with your app into the cloud and it'll run alongside the model itself. So where AI will take us will be interesting, right? Who'd have thought it less than a couple of years ago, large language models, did we really know much about them? We probably didn't, right? So they've sort of come up very quickly.
Yeah.
So we're looking very strongly into those areas, and there's a huge amount of opportunity to marry those technologies with people, the cultural aspects, which I don't think AI is never going to address. How do we bring people together and use technologies to make them more efficient? Is probably the way that we're looking at it. For sure.
Working together, because again, it's
augmented, isn't it? Yeah. That's probably the way of looking at it.
I mean, in a manufacturing environment, it's always that. It's almost a bit, a myth where it's going to take our jobs, but there's always. I mean, we talk about in the Senseye product, it's as important as the data we get. It's also the human or the maintenance person providing input as well into why did that case open? Was it correct? Did it, and it feeds back into it as well. So it always needs directing in some way.
I think so. Yeah, I think the human and AI augmentation, bringing those things together and making sure they're working closely together. But it's it's moving it. I think what's interesting is when you look at digital transformation, the challenge is that the world moves on at such a pace. There's new technologies, new opportunities coming up almost daily now. The question is, how do you embrace all of that technology? How do you bring it in? Because it makes your landscape more complex, right? It's you want to solve these problems, and there's probably 10 or 15 new technologies that might help you do that. How do you assess it? How do you bring it in? How do you make sure it all works together? So the pace of change and the pace of innovation is a challenge. In one respect, it's great that we're innovating. On another side, it's just difficult because there's always something new to look at. What we're trying to do within Mendix is give you what we call a subscription to innovation. We're bringing all of that technology together in a low-code platform so that you don't have to. So we're thinking about what AI means for both application development, also for the end solution. We're thinking about what composable enterprise looks like, and how you need to create underlying event management in terms of data and so on. So buying into Mendix is like buying into a subscription to innovation, so we can sort of alleviate some of that burden that comes with it, so you can focus on how do you use this technology to solve business problems, while we help you focus on some of those innovative challenges and new technologies.
Please like and subscribe on all major podcast channels, and find out more about Senseye Predictive Maintenance at Siemens.com.